Hi there, welcome back. So in this lecture, we're gonna learn about the array module of Python. The array module allows us to store a collection of numeric values. To create an array of numeric values, we need to import the array module in our IDE. So without any further ado, I'm just gonna jump into my IDE and I'm gonna show you how to import array module. So we're gonna type import array as ARR, then I'm gonna hit enter and I'm gonna create a variable called a. You can name your variable anything that you want, equals, then I'm gonna type ARR dot array, then I'm gonna add parentheses, get inside, I'm gonna type single quote, and I'm gonna append letter D inside my single quotation, then I'm gonna add a comma, then I'm gonna bring in my square bracket, get inside, and I'm gonna type 1.1, then add a comma, space, then let's say 2.2, add a comma, space, then 3.3. Now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna hit enter, call my print function, and simply pass my variable called a. So now if I right click and run it, then you'll see that we've got an array printed out on our code runner. So you might wonder about this letter D over here. So what is this? Well, this is a type code for array. Have a look at this image. So this is a chart of Python type codes. So based on the type of the type codes that are available in Python, we can pretty much categorize them in, let's say, three major categories, and they are as follows: int, float, and we also have Unicode, but it's a lone type. So what is the difference between these ints? Well, the difference is only lies in the byte section. Apart from that, they all are pretty much kind of same. So I'm gonna jump back to the IDE and I'm gonna show you some of the types that I have listed out over here. So let's see how we can use all these type codes along with our array. So let's copy this, and if I paste it over here, and now let's say we want to work with type B. And what is type B? Well, as you can see that type B is int with a minimum byte 1. So let's see how we can work with type B. So we're just gonna change this to type B, and everything else could remain the same. We can comment this out. Let's highlight and comment this out. Now we can this is not float, so we're just gonna have to remove the floating points, or else we're gonna have an error. So now if I run it, then you'll see that we have an integer type array printed out on our code runner. So what happens if I change this to from being B to, let's say, M, something that does not exist in Python? So if I right click and run it, immediately we run into an error that says bad type code. What does that mean, bad type code? Bad type code is this letter M, which is something that does not exist in Python. So if I reverse what I have done, holding down my Control and Z and right click, run it, things will get back to the way it was before. So this is integer, right? So now watch what happens if I change this from being small b to capital B, right click, run it. It's gonna still be the same, and we're not gonna run into an error because this is an integer and we have integer values. But if I add something like a floating point number and try to run it, then immediately we're gonna run into an error because capital B is also n. As you can see, it's an integer type, and we have added a floating point number on our array, hence we got an error. So let's remove and run this program again, and we are back on business. So let me show you something else. Let's say I'm gonna show you the F type. So if I change this from B to F, and now I'm just gonna add 0.0, 0.0, 0.0. Now if I run this program, then we're gonna have our values printed out on our code runner without giving us an error, because F is a type code of floating point number, and we have set our values to be floating point numbers, and that is the reason why we don't have any errors. What else could I show you? Let's pick something random, say capital L. So let's see how we can work with that. So if I change F to capital L and remove the floating points from my values, right click, run it, as you can see that we have our array printed out on our code runner without any error. And like before, if I add a floating point number as my array, try to run it, we're gonna run into an error because this letter capital L represent integer and can only be used to define an integer based array. So I'm gonna highly encourage that you practice all these different type codes in your IDE and see what kind of result you can achieve with them. And I'm not gonna extend this lecture anymore because I'm pretty optimistic about the fact that you will be able to experiment with all the type codes that are available in this chart. So I'm just gonna wrap this up. I hope this has been informative and you've learned some valuable lesson. I'll see you in the next lecture. Thanks, bye.